Hey everyone, welcome back to the Jack and Joe show. Very festive feels going on. I can see some lights behind Jack's head. Fantastic news. This is the last time you'll see us before Christmas, so I hope you're all doing well. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, no, very well. Looking forward. It feels like the World Cup's sort of just been forgotten about, and now
Yeah,
it's full focus on the Premier League, and obviously all that comes with it, the festivities and lots of games, lots of goals, hopefully, and hopefully 3 points on Boxing Day, Joe.
yeah, fingers crossed. We're building up to that Palace game today and having a slight look ahead to the January transfer window, I should say, which is not very far away. And as we all know, the transfer window is the most wonderful time of the year. So there's been a couple of links this week, which have been slightly stronger than last time we spoke. First one I think we should talk about, Jack, is Cedric Soares from Arsenal, the fullback. So predominantly a right back. Can also play on the left-hand side if need be. It's been at Arsenal for a few years now. It was at Southampton up to, I think, around 2018, 2019. And I believe he was their captain for a bit. But more importantly, he has played under Marco Silva before in Portugal. So it's an interesting one. I think it's a position where we're all pretty aligned on we're going to get a right back in. That seems almost certain. But what are your thoughts on this one? For me personally, before you get into it, I've got to say, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. I think it's quite an experienced signing that is just okay. It's like what we need. But what do you think? And how would you compare him to Mbabu from what you've seen? Because that's basically who we're having to judge him against right now.
With the two players we're going to talk about today, there is a link here with Marco Silva previously. And what I think is good about that is the fact that because we're now in January, we need players who are going to slot in, do a job for us the rest of the season. And it's just a safe pair of hands. It's someone that Marco Silva has known by them playing for him before. Therefore, he can trust them in a bit part role or a more full-time role in terms of whether he starts or whether he plays. Like the two players we'll talk about, Cedric Soares, and obviously the other one we'll come on to. I was actually at the Emirates the other day and I saw Cedric Soares play. He came off the bench against Juventus, and it was
How's he looking?
Well, it was a period of the game where Arsenal were absolutely dominating and they were throwing the kitchen sink at Juve, and then they countered and scored in the last minute to make it 2. And he put in a couple of decent balls into the box, quite aggressive with his runs in terms of the overlaps and underlaps. He hasn't played that much football recently for Arsenal, especially in their title charge at this current moment in time. Obviously, Ben White has occupied that right back position. So I could see from his point of view why he'd want to sort of get a move. And would he be first choice over Kenny Tete? I'm not sure, but it'd still be a very, very, like I said, safe pair of hands to have as a backup. And to compare with Mbabu, I don't think obviously he's got the pace that Mbabu has, but also I think Suarez's end product is way better, bit more quality. And I think that Mbabu, I feel sorry for him. It's gone wrong for him. You know, we spoke about it last week, but this could make sense for all parties. And I'm not sure what was the terms of the deal. Was it a loan with an option, or was it a fee?
So
we're not sure.
There was a few different reports. The Evening Standard was the most recent one, and they were saying it would be a loan with an obligation to buy. Of course, that's actually impossible currently, because you have 2 Premier League players loaned in Dan James and Shane Duffy. So the only possible way for that to happen is if either one of them is turned permanent or one of them is recalled from their loan. And I feel like Shane Duffy being recalled is probably more likely than us signing Dan James permanently based on how both of their loan spells have gone so far. I also don't think we'll be sending Dan James back. But Shane Duffy, not out of the question. He's not getting minutes. I can see why he'd want to go back. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, for me, I think that Cedric is a bit of a steady Eddie, experienced player, maybe nothing special. What do we need? We don't need anything special. We need to be good enough to finish as a minimum 17th. And I think he's definitely good enough for that. He's got good experience in several top flight divisions, including most recently in the Premier League. I would also say that with Kenny Tete, I don't think anyone's going to come in and displace him. But the problem is, as we all know, he's got his injury problems. And we need someone that isn't a winger in Bobby Reid, because let's face it, Mbabu is just not being fancied, to cover there for probably, let's face it, minimum 5 games between now and the end of the season, more likely slightly more, as well as some cup football as well. He can also cover on the left-hand side, where when Robinson's not played so far, we've had a mixture of Kurzawa briefly before he got injured, and Babu, and also Tim Ream. And Tim Ream obviously did a great job there in the friendly against West Ham on Saturday just gone. But Kurzawa not even involved again, as he's still got an injury. It's good to have someone a bit like a Dennis Adoy that can cover multiple bases, maybe just to a slightly higher degree of quality, I might say. And speaking of another player that could be brought into cover, I think we should move on to the more recent rumour of Abdoulaye Doucoure. Came out yesterday from Sky Sports, who have got a patchy track record, it must be said. But Jack, your best friend Fabrizio Romano, also came out with it today at the time of recording. I wonder if you will renew acquaintances soon with your friend. But as you said, Jack, there is a link. He played under him being Marco Silva at Watford. And at that time, he was a very aggressive goal-scoring number 8 midfielder. At Everton, it just hasn't quite happened, has it? He's now lost his place as they brought in Onana. He also seems to be behind James Garner in the pecking order. Doesn't help that
Onana, Garner, and Idrissa Garner Gay.
That's fantastic, by the way. That is fantastic scouting just on names. And then you've also got Iwobi, who's been moved into a midfield position. They should sign both Fofanas, the midfielder and the defender.
Brilliant.
Jack, what do you make of this one? Because for me, if this was a few years ago, I'd be thinking, I don't even think we can sign Doucoure. I don't think we've got that pull at this moment in time. He's definitely declined. He's approaching, I believe, 30. And he's not had a great time at Everton at all, as I've mentioned. He hasn't started a game since, I think it was August, Sky was saying, for Everton. And there's been a clear decline. So what do you make of it? And do you still think this would be a good signing?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's scored for Everton since the opening day of the season last season against Southampton. I seem to remember he scored on the opening day when they won.
Great goal.
It was a good goal.
Top corner.
After Adam Armstrong put Southampton ahead. I think it may have been the equaliser with Richarlison getting the winner. Who knows? Who cares? I'm happy with this. I think this is good. We need another central defensive midfielder, box to box. Someone to replace Harrison Reed, João Palhinha, Andres Pereira, if need be. And I saw a lot of Abdoulaye Doucoure in that lockdown season, I seem to remember. Was that the first season he joined Everton? I thought he played quite a lot and actually was quite good. Yeah. And yeah, like you say, he's down the pecking order now. I think they might have upgraded, got some younger midfielders in. And obviously, when we played Everton, Onana was really good. Gay was really good. It was a good battle in midfield. And I wouldn't be completely against this at all. I think some of the reaction on Twitter has been, yes, please. And a lot of it's been, no, thank you. But I've come to the conclusion, I've said this before, that any signing we make under Marco Silva, whatever pedigree they've had it before they joined the club, you sort of have to give them a fresh start, as we've seen with Andreas Pereira, who's been, I think, brilliant since signing from Manchester United. And yeah, it's good cover. It's another bench option. I don't think he'd start over Harrison Reed or obviously João Palhinha, but it's someone who we could bring on to defend a lead, see out a game, or just add a little bit of stardust in that midfield. Solid, good tackler, good passer. I'm happy. Genuinely, it sort of suits the mold. It suits the sort of team that we're trying to build at the moment. And whether we sign on a short-term deal, a long-term deal, I'm not fussed. I think it's good. I think it's sensible business. It's not, oh my God, get him in now. This is amazing. It's just sensible business. And I think we've been a sensible Premier League team this season. Yeah. And I think we're just fitting into that mold. And I don't really have any qualms about this at all, Joe.
Yeah. And you would imagine that it would have to be reasonably cheap for him and Cedric if either of them were permanent deals. For either of them to be not permanent deals, as we've said, something has got to happen with one of the other loanees at a minimum. You never know, something could happen with both, but I doubt it. I mean, for goodness sake, our current midfield backup options are Onana and Chalobah.
Yeah.
And they're not good enough, and we've seen that. And I'm sure that an out of form Doucoure let's face it, we've had out of form players come in before, supposedly Andres Pereira, who's been absolutely fantastic, as an example. There were doubts about Harry Wilson when he first came in, if you look that far back. Most of the signings have worked out absolutely fine, and even better than fine. They've been great. And it'll be interesting to see if this one would be the same. Let's come on to a game, Jack, because we're actually playing football, and I'm very excited for it. Selhurst Park, 3:00, sold out away end or on Amazon Prime if you're going. Jack, I would say for this section, we have to point out that we have no knowledge at this point from the press conference, which is taking place tomorrow at the time of recording, in terms of team news. We can only go off the assumption that everyone is fine, other than perhaps the players that weren't involved on Saturday. So by that, you would say the players that are coming back. So João Palhinha, Mitrovic, Robinson,
Solomon.
They weren't involved. Solomon wasn't on the bench. We know that Cabano's out long term. We've got 2 players now. I've already mentioned them, Mitrovic and Robinson, who are both on 4 yellow cards. Don't want either of them to get a yellow card before 19 games, because then the period is extended for 5 yellows. What would your team be? And let's put a few caveats in here. Let's say, like, for example, if you don't think Robinson is back, if you don't think Palhinha is back, and if you don't think Mitrovic is back, because I'm assuming you'll start all 3, who would you want to play in their place?
Okay, so you want me to make 2 hypothetical lineups?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with no World Cup players. It would be Leno, Ream left back, Diop, Tosin, Tete, Reed, Kearney, Pereira, and then, well, I mean, Wilson and James are back, aren't they? I mean, they're sort of in
they're back. They were both involved the other day. Yeah,
I put Vinicius up front. I thought he played really well against West Ham, and then probably, James and Wilson, probably.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, Willian.
Why
do I forget about Willian? I'm so sorry. Willian,
he's that
Wilson.
good. You forget that he could possibly play for us, but he's unbelievable. And I'm guessing that if they're fit, the other players slot in.
Yeah, Robinson left back over Ream. I then put Ream with Diop, actually. Palhinha comes in for Kearney, unfortunately, because obviously love Kearney. And Mitrovic in for and Robinson. Yeah, I said Robinson, Mitrovic in for Vinicius. Yeah. I'd be very happy at 2:00 if that lineup comes out.
I think the main question here is, other than the players being back, because I agree, is who would play on the wings. I feel like Willian's place is locked in. On the other side, you could make a case for Bobby Reed. You could make a case for Wilson. I don't think you can make a case for James at the moment, to be honest with you. I think that he may be more as an impact sub. But then also, will Solomon be fit enough to make the bench? We just don't know.
I'd love to see Solomon start one of these games.
I would love to see that as well. And that I feel as if I'm sort of aiming internally, and I know nothing, by the way. I've got no knowledge. But like that whole game, I just hope he's starting by then to have some minutes in a competition where hopefully he can have a bit of joy. Rather than throwing him into the deep end, for example, against Chelsea a few days later. Jack, next thing I'll ask you is for your score prediction. It's been a while, and we must say again that Palace have some huge team news in their backline in terms of Guehi being suspended. We also haven't seen Joachim Andersen yet since the World Cup. He has not been in any of their friendlies. We don't know if he's fit, similar to how we're not sure about Mitrovic yet because he was one of the later ones back. It would be unbelievable news for us if they were missing their 2 first-choice centre-backs, but we know they're definitely missing one, and that's playing into my mind a bit with my prediction, but let's hear what you think, Jack.
First of all, Christian Eriksen played last night and scored for Manchester United, so those World Cup featuring players, you would imagine Joachim Andersen is at least training with Palace, but we don't know. We will find out over the next few days. Not sure when Vieira's press conference is. I'm sure it's tomorrow probably.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye on that. Joe, I'm going to be really boring here and say Crystal Palace 0, Fulham 0.
Wow.
Welcome back.
I mean, welcome back with a bang, back with a clean sheet, and the Leno Golden Glove is on, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's a well-contested game where both sides have chances and there's no real standout in terms of the team. It would be very evenly an even contest. I don't want that to happen. I think
Yeah.
we can win, but because we haven't played in so long, I'm a little bit apprehensive. How are we going to look? How are they going to look? Wilf Zaha, Elise. I mean, I've seen Palace a few times over the last couple of seasons, and under Vieira, and they are really fun to watch. But obviously, for this game, I really would like Fulham to come away with 3 points. What about you?
I'm feeling optimistic, Jack.
I'm feeling glad all over.
I'm going 3-1 Fulham. I'm
Wow.
feeling really up for it. I feel like what I saw in that friendly the other day, I wasn't there, but I watched it back. I loved us in that first half a lot. Like, I loved the way we were going forward, so positive. And that was with a few key players out. I'm hoping that we'll have at least 2 of them back, hopefully all 3 by Monday. I think it's Monday. They all blend into one, don't they? But I really hope so. And I can just see a Willian goal in the second half to seal it, similar to Leeds. But then hopefully we don't let one in afterwards and make it a bit nervy like we did last time. I'm really feeling up for it. And here's the thing I would say. As always, a point I would take. I'd be happy with that. I'd be satisfied with that. And that Southampton game afterwards is one that I really want to see us pick up the 3 points. But a win here would be massive. And I feel as if it was a while ago, but if we play like we did against United, if we play like we did against West Ham in the first half in the friendly, then I think we can pick up 3 points here.
Yeah, it'd be great. It honestly would be great to given the last 2 results where I feel like we have deserved at least a point in maybe both. If you make the point of that, I think that it'd be justice if we came away with 3 points and just sort of got us back in the rhythm onto 22 points and maybe away from trouble. There is one thing that's concerning me, and actually a couple of things that we could still talk about. First of all, I know it's Blackburn Rovers, but last night Nottingham Forest looked quite good. And they beat Valencia in a friendly.
Yeah.
How much am I taking from that? Who have they got on Boxing Day? I can't actually remember.
They're playing, I believe, away to United on the 27th.
That's it. 27th, yeah. Come on, United.
I wouldn't take too much from that, Jack, to be honest.
Okay.
Especially as Blackburn Rovers tax, a couple of weeks ago, they got battered by Preston. I don't think Preston are going to be staying up. So in the Premier League.
I see.
So
right, okay.
I don't know. They looked good, and it's a good confidence boost for them. And obviously, I'd rather it didn't happen. I'd rather Blackburn get through. But what I would say is let's take a look at how they look against United, because this is a weird situation which we haven't had before, maybe since the lockdown season when COVID first happened, and then we went to behind closed doors from all the games that were meant to be March onwards. So this last quarter of the season, where everyone's had a pre-season, aside from the players that went to the World Cup. It's a completely fresh start. Players that were injured are now back. New managers have had time at Wolves and Villa and Southampton to get their ideas across. It's really, really intriguing. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few teams either shoot up or plummet down, depending on how their fortunes go. And for our sake, I hope that we're just one of them that's just stay as we are or even improve a tiny bit. But, Forest, it will have been, I think they're one of the teams that will have been benefited by this break due to the amount of players they brought in the summer. Bedding in time is always going to be helpful.
They do look a well-oiled machine from the highlights I watched from last night's game. Blackburn, they lost to Burnley quite heavily. They then lost to Preston very heavily. They then beat Norwich. Then they lost to Forest. So, weird one. There is a point to be made here that, we always say, we have said. By the way, apologies for all the WhatsApp noises. Hopefully that doesn't come through too loudly for you guys. There is a point to be made that we only want to sign 2 players in January, maybe 3 if we're lucky. But there are some teams in the Premier League who are going to go heavy on business, not necessarily acquisitions in terms of 2, 3, 4, or 5 players, but money spent. Let's start with Wolves, who look like they're going to be signing Cunha for 40 million. Or so, it's something like a loan with an option.
It's a loan with obligation, I think. Yeah.
Of 40 million. But not only Wolves, Southampton, I reckon, will probably dip into the market heavily. Forest have already said they want another 2 players. And a team that was really in trouble, West Ham, they were furious after that friendly against us. They're concerned.
Yeah. And one team you haven't mentioned there, Jack, Bournemouth, who have just been taken over. I mean, they are almost certainly going to spend big in January, and as they should. They've been taken over. They had quite a limited summer in terms of transfers, and they've done very well regardless. So I think it's going to be a very strange time because we'll have a couple of games and then we're back into the transfer window and everything could change. Teams like Newcastle near the top pushing to secure that top 4 place, things like that. All the teams at the bottom panicking. I'm sure Wolves are really, really panicking because they're bottom and they're going to have to pay a premium for a lot of players. And I don't know, I might eat my hat with this, might eat my words, but if I was struggling for goals, that's not the player I'd have brought in.
No.
Because not prolific. He might benefit the system, but their problem is scoring goals. They've been fairly solid defensively, similar to West Ham, who've got an identical problem, which has been made worse by Scamacca's injury in the friendly against us.
By Diop.
By Agent Diop, who was just fuming about that handball goal, wasn't he? So he's like, enough of that, mate. No, in all seriousness, I saw a bit of backlash to that. It was the tackle was pretty innocuous, like it wasn't deliberate or anything. So I think everyone's just being a bit dramatic. But as you say, Jack, really interesting second half of the season going to happen, and hopefully we come out on the right end of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not like we're just bedding into, it's like the start of the season, you're bedding into the season. This is like, we're on game 18, aren't we? 18 something or 17?
Like yeah, something like
this
that.
This is really big stuff. This is really, like I said, like Leicester, Southampton, Palace, Spurs are in there, Chelsea. I mean, this is huge, absolutely huge. I think that's all we've got to talk about today, really.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. I am nervous for the return because I really don't want us to drop because we've been on such good form. But you're right, I didn't actually take the performance against West Ham into consideration when I made my prediction. I forgot that we actually played quite well and Vinicius got a goal. And whatever, the goal we conceded was pretty frustrating. But
it was awful.
Yeah. In fact, we've done a Jack and Joe show since that game, haven't we?
No,
we have.
I don't think we have.
Did we not?
I'm like 99% sure we haven't, but my brain's melting a bit.
No, you're right. You're right. We're right. Yeah, I got confused with the France game.
Yes.
So that's it. We'll be back in this weird period between Christmas and New Year. We all know there's every year. We don't know what day it is. Don't know what date it is. Don't know what time it is. Don't know what football club we support. Don't know what world we're on. Stupid. Right. Joe Sanson, thanks so much for being here and have a very happy Christmas.
You too, Jack, and everyone watching. If you celebrate, have a great Christmas. If not, then enjoy your break and enjoy the New Year's celebrations as well. And see you either next week or the week after, depending on when we find the time to film. But there will definitely be a show next week regardless.
Yeah, we'll look back on Palace and we'll look ahead to Southampton. Just before we go, there is 180 people we would need to subscribe to the channel to get to 5K. 180. So apt because the darts is on right now. The world champs. If you just press escape on your full screen when you're watching YouTube or on your phone, and you should see that the subscribe button is not pressed, please would you press it so we can get to 5K, because we've been sat on 4.8 for quite a while, and
we've been really trying to get to 5K for a long time.
And I think if you enjoy the content, and I know we've obviously had a hiatus, and not as many people have been tuning in, but hopefully as we keep doing videos and we get more traction, it'll just we'll be very appreciate. We will appreciate it, and it would be very nice if you were to subscribe to the channel, leave a like or a comment, we just really want to. We're going to keep on rolling with the Jack and Joe show all season long, and hopefully it's going to be the season's going to end in not being relegated, basically, Joe. Yeah. And I just really wanted to hammer that home just before we leave today.
Yeah, hammer that home like the Hammers hammered home that shit goal. But please get us to 5K.
It'd be really good. It'd be great. Thank you so much for watching. Have the best Christmas. Save yourself for the session on Boxing Day. I'm sure Sellers Park will be rocking. I know there's train strikes, so anyone going, have a safe trip. And Joe, thank you so much for being here, and have the best Christmas going.
Cheers, Jack. You too, and you too, everyone watching as well.
Thanks, everyone. We will see you in that weird period. Come on, Fulham.